We'll introduce him. First is Barney Chowdhury. Barney, how are you this evening?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm humbled to be here.
Well, Barney, thank you for coming into the studio. And we have on the Zoom today also Raj Tulsiani. Raj, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Greetings from a cloudy Liverpool.
Great. And we also have Abdul Sheikh. He's from Batley in Yorkshire. Abdul, how are you today?
I am well. I hope you are well too, Zed, and thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to take part in this radio show today.
Right. Now, all the three of you gentlemen are involved extensively in the diversity sectors, in the integration, cohesion, and also Abdul Sheikh is involved quite actively in community and media also in Batley. So, Barney, we're going to start off with you right here today. We are here today to create a positive, meaningful change, right? And we're going to do that with no resource, right? Unless one of you can try to put £1 million here on the table this evening, we'll have a good start.
I wish I could,
right?
and I'd donate it straight away. I think there are several things we can do without any money whatsoever, and I think it's the most valuable thing in the world, and that's talking to each other. That costs us absolutely nothing at all.
So we're starting here today with human capital, right, which is time. We need to spend time with each other, to get to know each other, and today we're going to focus on solutions as opposed to sitting here going back in history for the last 100 years, what's been happening in our communities, right? We are not going to achieve much. Raj, are you listening, Raj?
Certainly.
Yeah. So, Raj, we are looking for solutions today. So, any ideas? And all of you listening in right now also, you can send your message in here by text. You can send it in by on the Zoom link. You can send it on the YouTube. You can also come forward with putting your ideas on the table. What we have to do this task collectively. We're here today to talk to you about integration, and that is what we have to do, is all work together. This is not a journey for one person, one man or one woman. This is a journey for everybody in the community. Wherever you are, you could be on the other side of the world, or you are here in the city of Leicester, or you are in Liverpool or London, wherever. So let's focus today primarily on our city called England or Great Britain. So we are only going to say we are great if we achieve our objectives. Abdul Sheikh?
Yes.
Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
So, well, what is? Let's start with you because you are furthest north from where we are sitting in Leicester. So,
yes,
tell us about the level of diversity, cohesion, integration you are experiencing in your area.
I think things are very fraught and very difficult. Like, for example, West Yorkshire, 17% of the population in West Yorkshire is ethnic minority origins, Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, Bangladeshi, but only 6% of the workforce in West Yorkshire is of ethnic minority origin. So there's an 11% gap. For example, I go to work in Leeds daily now since the end of COVID and with the implementation of hybrid working at the university. But if you look at Leeds, generally, if you look at the workforce, generally very white, dominated male and female, but there doesn't seem to be much ethnic minority representation. So I think the challenges for small, medium, and large enterprises, public sector, private sector, to actually put their money where their mouth is as far as equality or equity, they call it equity now rather than equality, diversity, and inclusion. So a lot of organizations talking about EDI strategy, talking the talk, but I think its time has come to walk the walk in order to bridge that gap between the ethnic minority population in West Yorkshire in comparison to the percentage of people employed in organizations in West Yorkshire from an ethnic minority.
So do you also find that the case, Raj, in your particular area?
Yeah, I think there, whether you look at it from a perspective of senior leaders in organizations now having a bit more of the will to do something, but not the skill, or whether you look at disparities of people's experience. There are places where integration is easier. Sports, work, school, and these three areas are areas where actually people are expected to behave in a certain way. So I think we need to focus on wins and examples of things working well, but we have to integrate our own communities as well. It's not possible to expect other people to help us if we won't help ourselves. And in the workplace, it's in their best interest to unleash the power of a diverse workforce, which many organizations have now. And they can only do that through using inclusion as an engine to achieve their own aims, because organizations are inherently selfish. They work for their own aims. So we need to make sure the diversity in this country and in the workforce is actually seen as a benefit, because they've got it anyway. But at the moment, we're not getting a great shake from it because we don't have leaders who look like us, think like us, empathize with our journeys. And of course, we've got institutional cultures that are run around risk and doing what they've always done. So I think we have got a tremendous opportunity in some ways and an awful set of problems in others, but it doesn't make any difference because each day we have to try and find ways of encouraging other people and ourselves to step forward. We can only do that through example.
So, Bonnie, what Raj is talking about is institutional, systemic,
and structural.
And structural, right, issues that we have across the board in our communities. So before we get to the workplace, I want to bring it down here on our streets of our cities. And our whole structure of our diversity in every city that you go to seems to be based around a particular community center or a place of worship for that particular community.
I think one of the big things that Raj sort of indicated, and I hope Abdul will agree, is that in terms of when it comes to diversity, when it comes to inclusivity, when it comes to any form of equality, if we don't understand the fact that there's a business case to this, the more creative we are, the bottom line is the more money we'll make. If we start off with that as the basic starting point, businesses, people, companies will start to listen. So will the communities. The second point I think that is worth talking about is the fact that there are rules of the game. We don't get anywhere unless we understand the rules of the game. We can't play football if we don't know the offside rule. We can't play cricket if we don't know what it is to be bowled out leg before. If we don't understand the rules of the game as communities ourselves, that we need to work together, and that there is such a thing called the old school tie, and if we don't start to think about the what actually integrates us rather than what divides us, we're still going to be talking about this. I've now been in the business for 40 years. I've been in this country for more than 50 years, and all I can see and all I've reported on are the divisions which exist within our communities. And I think there's a reason for that. And it's the old phrase that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And I think that's the problem that we're facing, is that we're not really listening to each other. We're not really helping one another.
Of course, we want to change all that, and we haven't got time on our side because we are looking now for the next generation. We cannot be sitting here, Raj, in another 5 years, 10 years, talking about the same things we've been talking about in the last 20 years. Now, we're going to take you back 50 years of this city, in the city of Leicester. Raj, we've had lots of different, every decade we've had different immigrants coming from different parts of the world here to this city. And I always will tell everybody listening in right now that immigration is an asset. It's an asset, but it is also falls prey to victimhood, where people use it and abuse it for their own political ends. And this happens not only here in England, but it happens across the globe, Raj. And we need to call it out for what it is every day if we have to, and move forward with the positive things that communities are doing in the city together, collectively. Not enough is talked about the good work that happens in our city. And you see a little fracas that happened a month ago in our city, and the whole world got involved. The whole world got involved, Raj. I've never seen anything like it. Yet, people who live in the urban areas around the city of Leicester, they didn't have a clue what's going on. So you see the disparity we have, Abdul, Raj, Barney, between the city of Leicester and the urban area, the rural areas. They don't have a clue what's going on. Because there's us and them situation being created.
I think that's right. Abdul may have some comments about what's happening in Batley right now, what's happening in West Yorkshire right now, which sort of mirrors what's going on in Leicester and Leicestershire right now. Would that be true, Abdul?
I think the underlying currents are very similar, where you have polarized communities now in Leicester between, certain elements of the Muslim and Hindu community in Leicester and the white community and the Asian community in Bali. I think there's many towns and many cities where you've got the appearance of calmness, of a tranquil environment, but there are issues that are bubbling under the surface. So I think Zed, you alluded to earlier, that every once upon a time, maybe every 10, 20, 30 years, one spark occurs and it threatens to basically blow everything out in the open. So I think there are parallels between communities, but the issues are not exactly identical. So you can't say that the situation in Bali is exactly identical to Leicester, because there are different parties involved, different individuals involved, different maybe faith communities involved. So, but I think the underlying currents there's a lot of similarities, I would say, across many towns and cities in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think this is also structural. So it's a particularly British thing to start a club, and then the next thing you do is tell people why they can't be members. And then after a generation or so, people who've been immigrants are now creating barriers to start their own clubs or to create their own barriers. And ultimately what we're ending up with is just a massive lack of integration. And part of that has to be economic opportunity. Where you see poverty, economic disparity, crime, you see more of this kind of protectionist attitude where anything that community gets means it's something that's being taken away from mine. And for years, as people of South Asian heritage, we were all lumped together. But now, as the society has moved on and our part in British society has moved on, we're actually being put at loggerheads against each other. And I think that's very dangerous and something that Leicester should really be able to take this opportunity that the media has made a huge thing, and actually positive action now in Leicester will have a positive effect throughout the whole country. It's a central point of interest now.
But isn't that the classic case of divide and rule? That's the way that this society is, that we are all made to feel that whatever happens, we should be having it too. Why are we not getting it when we're not actually concentrating on what are the priorities here? Because my friend John is having an extension done, whereas my friend Iqbal isn't. Why isn't Iqbal getting the extension, or why isn't Iqbal getting the permission? And it's because of that, and it's almost the politics of envy which sort of causes the divisions that actually exist in any city, town or village.
Of course, guys, now we are in 2022 now, right? The DCI, what you talked about just now, divide, conquer, and the I stands for insecurity. So this is an age-old historic, it can go back thousands of years. Communities have always done that. But here, it's happening right in front of us, but we don't see it. Because we have, for example, we have identity crises right now. We've always had this problem where there's a candidate selected, whether he should be elected or selected. People have got to learn the difference. Raj, what is the difference? Are you selected or have you been elected? Or should you be there for the merit? Which one is happening right now, as you see in our city councils?
I think all of them happen. I think my problem is not how they get in the room; it's what they do when they're in the room. What's the impact of our elected officials, our business leaders who are from ethnic minority backgrounds? So, I don't think you can get your way up a complex organization, whether it's a political, public sector, third sector, business, without allies. And sometimes it's more difficult for us to create allies if we are our authentic selves and talk about what we see as injustices. So when people have done that for their whole career, and then now suddenly in the last 5 years, people are more interested in our elected officials and our business leaders speaking out and acting out on this, that they've had a whole career of keeping it down. So I think we need real models, people that don't just look like us, but they act in our benefit. And I think that's really difficult for people who've been institutionalized on their way to these top positions. I think that's a concern, particularly in politics.
We mentioned this word institution throughout our conversation, and I'm going to add to that I'm going to add the H to that. Are you familiar with that, Barney? It's historic, institutional, systemic, and the R can be racism, or it can be extremism, or it can be terrorism, or it can be anything at the end. But it's historic part of it that worries me. That if we're in 2022 and we're still having the problem today that we were having yesterday, then what are we going to do about it, Barney?
I think that Raj touched on a point which is worth reinforcing, which is this. Our authentic selves, once we get into positions of power, we're not allowed to do because we're worried about losing that job. If we look at the two previous Home Secretaries, one current, one where she resigned, Priti Patel, both were more right of centre than the previous Home Secretaries before them. They wanted to show that they were so conservative that immigrants and immigration, both of whom are in this country because their parents were migrants here, immigrants here, it doesn't really matter. They're not allowed to be themselves because, and I don't know either, because they know they won't be accepted. And that historic thing that's happened a century, a millennia ago, is still happening right now, and it's still the politics of division that exists today.
So I'm going to say to all of you listening in right now is that we have a lot of work to do, and we have to work together. I've got to emphasize that again and again, that we all have to work together from all caste, color, creed, cultures. All of us. These are the famous 4 C's that we talk about, the caste, color, creed, culture. If we work together, we can achieve our goals, our aims, our objectives, and we can move forward, right? Otherwise, you're going to fall into the trap of divide or division, conquer, and insecurity.
But can you do that if the goal is to be the leader? And Raj will know this better than me, Abdul will know this better than me. If you are going to be the leader, you are dependent on your followers. And if you have to be holding to your followers, you have to act in a certain way. So surely the first thing we need to address is, how do we become our authentic selves? That to me is the first hurdle and the first solution we have to take.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of people from ethnic minority backgrounds who have no interest in diversity. They're interested in themselves, and I think sometimes we have to say our authentic self. If people are people have different views, and some people's views are very different from my own, and I wouldn't agree with politically. But if it's their authentic selves, and that is some form of progress, where I think there is more opportunity for faster progression forward is around working together on shared agendas that aren't political, that are based on, British values around fairness. The idea that if I work for a company, I'm supposed to act in a certain way, and if I don't, then the punishment or performance management of that should be the same regardless of my skin colour. So I think there's, tactical things that we can do in any organisation that don't cost money, that don't put us down this road of like letting the cult of a senior leader fix everything for us, because as you've already said, they're there for a reason, and often that reason is something to do with their ego and their purpose, which might not be shared with the communities.
Of course, Raj, you've hit on a word that I'm commonly used to in the business world is performance management, right? So this applies to everyone in the community, where we all have to be accountable. So our children, our grandchildren, what we do today will define their tomorrow. So their tomorrow is resting in our hands. The mindsets, you try to get 25-year-olds, 20 of them together, you'll struggle. You will struggle. They are not coming forward in the civic world. They're not coming forward in the political spheres. And you do struggle because the mindsets traditionally that they have different goals at that age, and they feel detached from the 50, 60-year-old politician. And for that reason, they don't want to work with their granddad's friend. So we have this problem to deal with on this journey that we are taking on, Abdul Sheikh and Raj, Bani, is a lot of change is going to be required to reach out to the Generation Z. They are the ones that we have to aim for and bring them on the table. So we're going to create change. We're going to have to adapt to change ourselves. Our methods, how we do this, because today we need to map out one solution. So Bani, you can see the clock is ticking for us, right? So I'm going to ask each one of you to give me one solution that I'm going to write down here and get to implement it. One that comes to the top of your head, Bani.
Mentoring, development, championing. And I think championing is going to be the most important thing, not mentoring and development. People, and Raj and Abdul will know this, that if you perform 100% of the time, you aren't going to succeed. It only accounts for 10% of your success. If you are nice to people, the impression that you create, that accounts for 30% of your success. So you've already wasted up 30% of your capital, 40% of your capital. So the last bit is about, it's about championing people. It's about exposure. If we can expose our youth to what is going to help them succeed, and we put that in front of people, I think that is a solution that I would want to come across. So if there were a journalist or that I know that I'm working with and I think is fantastic, my job is to make sure that I put them in front of the right people so they can climb the ladder and hopefully do good for the future journalists.
That I can run with that, Raj. I think that is a brilliant initiative. I myself have done that with the business community, with young businessmen, and seen success out of that, right? So we have to take that on board and collectively add. Raj, did you agree with what he said?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that's a positive step. I think ethnic minorities think that work is more of a meritocracy, and that if we work really hard and do a really good job, we'll get treated fairly, we'll end up at the top. It's not, it's a game. So if 40% of your time or whatever Barney suggested is based on helping you move forward, I think that's really good advice for anybody.
I think 60% is what I'm saying. 10% is our performance. 30% is being nice to people and creating the right impression and making ourselves indispensable. The final bit of E in the pie is exposure, which is 60%. That's what's going to count for 60% of your success.
So, of course, Bonnie is talking my language. He's saying that his greatness is when he has made somebody else great. Yes?
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Now, Abdul Sheikh, are you still there? Are you still there in Batley, or are you watching football? What are you doing?
I'm still here. My recommendation would be is to roll out religious and cultural diversity programs across public and private sector organizations. And the reason why I'm making this argument is, we're living in a country where we are nearly 70 million people, maybe 5 to 10% are ethnic minorities. The dominant white population in this country doesn't have a clue or has a very superficial knowledge of different cultures and different religions. And without that understanding of different faith groups, different ethnic groups, you're never going to be able to break down the barriers and never going to be able to actually address the issues of racism, prejudice, discrimination if you don't actually understand one another. So there's a major gap here that needs to be filled. And I've been calling for this for nearly a few years now. I think one particular council in West Yorkshire actually did take on board what I said a number of years ago at a particular conference. And they've actually implemented this at each level of the council, where they've got staff training programs teaching members of staff who are in front-facing roles so that they could basically better understand the constituents that they are actually assisting, whether it's to do with housing, education, welfare, etc., etc.
So we are almost working here today, aren't we? Right? We're putting down 3 solutions that I will take the role of being the implementer. How's that, Bonnie? Do we have
Sounds absolutely fantastic.
Do we have a vote? Yeah. I've recommended myself for that task.
I think we need a doer, and I think Zed is a doer. So that's
Raj,
fantastic.
We have a vote here from Barney for me.
Oh, you have a seconder.
Okay, great. Now, the way I'm going to say forward, we go forward like this is, if between Raj and Abdul Sheikh, they put together a paper, a simple one. We don't want to make this complicated.
I think it's dead simple.
And the mentoring, the championing, the enterprise. Now, what is key to achieving this objective, guys, is the data. We are going to use Leicester as our springboard. Yes, guys? Leicester.
Yes.
Now, we collect the data. Census is going to be out imminently, right? We will have the data, and we reach out to all these communities, and we connect with them, and we start working with them, bringing them together to achieve objectives collectively. Not the Sikh community wants to do this. Now, we had a situation here recently, guys, 180 organizations from the Hindu community went to Liz Truss. Now, do you think she's going to go through them right now in the mess that she's in currently? She'd probably be out of a job herself, right? So she's not going to be able to deal with them. And we have to be careful that if one ethnic group writes 180 letters, it tempts another group to write another 190. And it goes on and on and on. It never stops.
We've already seen that. Guys, I want to throw something else in, which is that when we get together around a table, we often say no but, because we're putting hurdles in the way. I'd like to change the narrative on that and say yes and. I know that sounds pie in the sky, but if we can add to those ideas in a positive way so that no idea is stupid, and we say, yes, I love your idea, and can we do this? In that way, we're having that conversation which gets rid of that theory of micro iniquities, which is that my view is better than yours because I'm in a position of power. If we keep on saying yes and.
So, of course, once again, I'm going to tell all our listeners that we don't want to do this program just to come here and talk and exchange ideas. We need to implement solutions. That was my mission right from the onset, that today I need to implement, even if they are small solutions, and we get them to work and we sing about them. We let the world know that we have put this solution into place, and we run alongside with other solutions that are already there in the community. And the positive is not highlighted by the media. Instead, they want a story, they're highlighting the negative. And as Bonnie, you are aware, in media, if you get the story wrong, you become a tool of propaganda.
Absolutely right. But you see, you hit on the point, and this is my yes and. My yes and to you is the data is so important. And because the data is so important, data does not lie, but it's the way it's interpreted that we have to be careful about. And I think Raj and Abdul Sheikh will know better than me in terms of how to use that data in a more positive way.
Of course. Now, I must emphasize, guys, the South Asian community if you started to record their milestones achieved in this country, right from a job as a bus driver, from a taxi driver, right up to somebody like you, Barney, who's a professor, and many, many others in many fields that, Raj, you will have a better data on that. And this is something we always have to bear in mind, encourage our young generation that, look, we achieved this, now you got to beat us. You got to be better than us, right? They have to aspire to be better than us. I don't want my son to achieve what I've achieved. I want him to achieve more than what I've achieved.
Absolutely agree.
So that data is very, very crucial, and we need to more positively talk about the good that we have done in this country, and let us, all of us, lead by example, as the South Asian community, as the black community, which comprises of black people from Africa, from the Caribbean, from all over Africa. So today, you mentioned earlier on the BBC, right? So you are in media. You worked at the BBC in your past life, haven't you?
I did.
Right? So we always, everybody's got their own acronym for the word BBC. No doubt Abdul Sheikh is thinking of one to tell us about. But BBC Broadcasting Corporation, the other day somebody told me, no, it's not. It's a British Brainwashing Corporation. And everyone's got an acronym here, haven't they, for the BBC?
Can I just ask my colleagues who are on the line with me for their definitions, and I'll give you mine after they've spoken.
You go first, Abdul Sheikh.
I don't know. You stumped me here. I'll have to come back. I'll let Raj go ahead of me.
I don't want to talk about the BBC because they don't talk about us properly.
Right, so this is where we are. Go on, your shout.
If I've been brainwashed, I apologise. All I know is that I hold a mirror up to society and I reflect what I see. I try to speak to a lot of people, and then I try to form my own ideas, which actually I like to be counterintuitive. I like to put views forward which other people haven't thought about. I hope I've done that during my career when I was with the BBC. I've got a soft spot for the BBC. I still think it's, for 44 pence a day, I think that they do a remarkable job. But then people might say I've been brainwashed.
Of course, BBC is just one example we picked on because he mentioned a club. And I always says British, the C stands for the club. But where we are going now is that BBC is just one amongst many media channels that I have been listening to over the Leicester. It wasn't even a riot. And when they write riot, it's a wrong word to use. And just one four-letter word can create a bigger riot. So it was two different communities throwing ping pongs at each other with language. And it got escalated to these 180 letters, right? Do you think, Barney, that we had to wait 50 years for something like this to happen?
Look, I've been reporting on this and I've been talking about the tensions that exist between South Asian communities for the last 42 years, because that's the communities in which I grew up. And it's right and fair that we report it, but we report it accurately, we report it without bias, and we ask difficult questions and tell unpalatable truths. I think that's where we have to be, and in order to do that, we have to listen. We have to listen twice as much as we speak, and that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
So again, on that particular incident in Leicester, Raj and Abdul Sheikh, you were far away from here. And what we are putting down as our solution to this is that all communities, they sit together and work together to look for prevention rather than look for a cure today and do a knee-jerk reaction, because they stood together to make a statement which they could not even agree on the words to say in that statement. And it was just a showpiece for 20 people standing there together. And we need to do this collectively on a table all the communities. There are some communities which are not even included on the table. Every community, every diversity has to be invited there. And if they're not engaging, we have to work hard to make them engage. And today, I'd like to aim for all the younger community, because they are the ones we need to focus on, the 25, the 30-year-old. Well, Bonnie, where do we stop that young?
I don't. I think that, when you get to 15, I think you start to form your own ideas. I think you go into adulthood. And I think you're absolutely right. I think we have to get young leaders emerging. And that's where we're lacking, is in the leadership. My father was different brought me up in a way that I didn't bring my daughter up, because I think that's important. We have to discuss. We have to get the young people to become leaders. And I think that's where it's lacking.
So part of that leadership journey, Raj, requires investment from the established businesses to support the leaders of tomorrow, to support them today, Raj. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think the expectations of younger generations are very different in terms of demanding fairness. And when they don't get that fairness, or they perceive that the doors are closed to them, that frustration builds up, and it happens immediately. And many people over the age of 40 or 50 who are in leadership positions, they don't empathize with that. They put their own way of looking at the world on other people. And that's not going to work. So if we really want to engage, listen to them.
Raj, we have to break that circle. We have to break that circle, because it's always been thus. Old people don't listen to young people.
I can vouch for that, exactly. So today, Raj, we are moving forward with this. We have a group of about 10 or maybe 15 young people on the table, and we're going to talk about these things, what we are talking about right now, to get them engaged and to build up our captains. Before we get to a leader, we need a captain, right? And the captain then is going to work for us to engage with his respective community. Now, if I was going to test you now, all of you, who's going to go first? You go first, because you are Barney, B. A, B, C.
What would you want me to say?
Run me through the A to Z of diversities in our city.
There are too many to mention.
There you go. A. Go on, hit me with one. A.
Afghans.
You're doing well, Barney. I think
B, Bangladeshi. C will be Caribbean. D will be the Daman community. E will be the Ethiopians. F will be the French. G will be the Gibraltarians.
No, we don't have any Gibraltarians here in Leicester.
We haven't got anybody from Gibraltar. Are you sure?
Raj, he's dropped one in there.
Are you sure? Are you sure we haven't got people from Gibraltar?
I'll need to research that one, but I'm
sure
pretty much sure he's dropped one in there, Raj.
H would be...
I'm sure he was going to say Ghanaians next.
Yeah, Ghanaians.
That
would be good.
Was.
And this is where teamwork comes in. You take over with the H, Raj, please.
I don't know if there's a Haitian community in...
Yes, there is.
Then I would be Indians.
Yeah.
J would be James. K would be... Somebody help me out here for K.
Guys.
Kenyans, that's good. How did I not know
So,
that?
guys, now you see where I'm coming from. That is the diversity we carry here. Now, I was told that in Leicester, we have 40 plus diversities. The A to Z does not even cover that. That's only 26.
I'm surprised there are so few.
Yeah. There are 40 plus.
I'm surprised there are so few.
40 plus, and they're saying that in Leicester, in one school, they recorded 70 languages spoken in a primary school. So that is what we're up against. So the journey...
But it's great.
It is.
It's absolutely fantastic, because, I mean, if you think about it, we're a melting pot. And when we put all those spices, we produce a great curry.
That's what it's all about. Now, this is how we take this negative that has happened in Leicester, we convert that into a positive, right? We start adding all the good work that we are already doing in this city, which has not been highlighted, and we sing a song about it. Now, where you can help us, Barney, is connect this good work with all your media contacts so they can cover the good as well as the bad. And the good has to outweigh the bad, 9-1.
Do you know, in America, guys, they tried this, and the paper lasted less than a week. They promised never to put any bad news in their paper, and unfortunately, it folded within a week, and that's been a big problem, because unfortunately, Raj, Abdul, Sheikh will, and you know this as well, Zed, that unfortunately, bad news sells, and people are more interested in bad news than they are in good news. Does that mean we don't do good news? No, it doesn't. It just means that it goes lower down the news priority, and that's been the big problem.
Of course, we will be working attentively on this immediately, starting after this program, and we shall keep you all informed that you also become inspired and join this journey of change. The CC on your email, Barney, what does it mean? CC, right? It means...
Change?
No.
Tell me.
It means on the email, it means carbon copy.
Carbon copy, courtesy copy.
But here it's going to mean create change, create cohesion. And we start doing that by integration, cohesion, diversity. Raj and Abdul Sheikh, if you can also get involved with this and keep in touch with us by email, and we swap addresses. We are already linked with each other. And
yes,
we run this progress together using Leicester as our springboard.
Sounds great to me.
And take this work away from here to other cities, you know. Now, Raj, we don't have a white paper on this. We don't have a green paper. We don't have a blue paper. We're just going to get the job done with our experience, our collective experience.
You know, everyone can go into work or to their chamber of commerce or their politicians and say, we want all of the ethnic minority resource or employee groups in these companies to share the same goals around integration. We want to make sure that all the companies who are talking about diversity, who have these groups, have a relationship with those groups that helps shape decision making. It can be on 2 or 3 things. But we want to make sure that people who are saying that they want to do something are held accountable. And that's a step forward.
Of course, Raz, you are involved with the race equality, so they have an office here in Leicester. Maybe you can open the door with them, and we can go talk to them to tell them, look, you take on some of the responsibility as well, because they're the ones who can connect with the industry, the commercial world out there, Raj.
I think you go to business, I think you go to local and central government. I think arm's length bodies, you know, they're there for policy. They're not there for what we want, which is a decision maker saying, well, yesterday it's like this, tomorrow it's like that. So let's co-create solutions with people in our organisation so we are better organisations, and the people who work here think better of us, think that we're actually on the side of doing something real, not just talking.
I think you're spot on, Raj. I really do. I think the decision makers are key to this. And I think what you also said about holding them to account, putting their feet to the fire, I think that's the only way. And we do it respectfully. We don't go in there with demands. We go in there and say, this is why it makes sense.
Of course, what I will point out to all our listeners right now is that when you have a minimum paid job, you don't have any issues of diversity there. You'll go into inner city factories and 80% of the employment there is from the ethnic community. So there's no problem there. They give you that job because nobody else will do that job. And you get your £9.50 an hour. And you can get a job almost every day in that sector, Raj. It's the sectors above that, what you talked about, the leadership sectors, the managerial sectors, the directors, the CEOs that Raj is dealing with every day in his workplace. That's where we need the change. But I think we want to focus more on the other issues that we have bulleted here, what Raj and Abdul Sheikh has mentioned, and what you have mentioned here.
Zed, can I just come in there for a moment, please?
You got 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Right. I think, Zed, the most important thing today is that we've got to be very careful when we're dealing with the word equality, because even though we like to say that people are equal, but in reality, it's impossible to achieve equality. I think it's this case of investing in equity, because everybody's coming from different stages in life or different backgrounds. So I think it's a case of, I think, creating a level playing field is more or less impossible. But I think if we can learn about each other, if we can actually understand where one another's actually coming from in terms of gender, faith, culture, then I think society can progress and advance in probably make more progress than we have done in the last 50 years.
Of course, we will have to cover that in some respects, Barney, and so on. So today, Barney, some last words from all three of you. You got 30 seconds.
I think I'm optimistic. I think it's been a great conversation, but I don't want it to be just a conversation. I want action.
Great. I can second that. And you, Abdul Sheikh?
Yeah, I think this is a starting point. I think we've had a great discussion.
And Raj, we got 9 seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love.
Thank you very much. We shall join you again shortly.